Okay, it's decided. This is my battle outfit right here, right here. If any anime bullcrap happens and like a sky portal opens up and we all have to pick up arms and fight against the aliens or like the eldritch demons or something, this is what I'm wearing right here. I love this shirt. It's got a really cool star thing on it. I got my jacket. I got these really cool jeans I just bought. My socks are just kind of socks, but whatever. I got Whitebeard's Bicento Murakumo Giri. Yeah, this is Tekking's battle outfit right here. Oh yeah! Alright, so I just realized something. Blackbeard has a lot of enemies. You know, like, Luffy needs to fight Blackbeard, Shanks is probably gonna fight Blackbeard, Weevil is now, you know, gunning for Blackbeard as well, and Garp is going, you know, for Blackbeard. So, you know, even if you want to go back and say that, like, Garp's gonna be killed by Blackbeard, what's Blackbeard gonna do, guys? Kill Garp, Shanks, and Weevil before Luffy finally gets there? Yeah, okay, maybe. I don't know. Blackbeard's pretty scary, I guess, but we all know Garp's gonna win, of course. All right, so, but that, you know, honestly, this video is not really so much about Weevil, because Weevil's character, like, in the last chapter, we got a good chunk of character development for Weevil, because up until that point, both of them really didn't have a lot of stuff going on. Weevil and Miss Bucking, or Miss Buckingham Stussy, as is her full name, only appeared, like, 2 times in the One Piece story up until last chapter. They showed up in their first introduction when, Brand New was, I think, going, no, it was even after that. Brand New kind of went over the warlords, and then we didn't see Weevil until a little bit later. I think it was after Dressrosa, and Weevil had defeated the A&O pirates. A.O. pirates that were allied with Whitebeard's crew because Miss Bucking was very, you know, clearly controlling and manipulating Weevil, you know, to guide him to go and defeat the former allies of Whitebeard to get their hands on the money, the treasure, the inheritance that Whitebeard had left. Of course, we know that he didn't really leave any treasure behind. Any treasure he did leave behind was not in the form of, like, money or gold doubloons or, like, gems or anything like that. It was in the town on Sphinx Island, which was his hometown, which he sent all of the share of the money, the treasure that they had earned over the years, to that town in order to make sure that it was peaceful and, you know, sustained. Since, as we found out actually in the last chapter, it was not allied with the world government, so they weren't going to get any help from the Marines or anything like that, okay? So, that's what Whitebeard did with his money. However, Miss Bucking is convinced that there was money somewhere out there, okay? Meanwhile, Weevil, very simple-minded individual, he was just like, you know, I am Whitebeard's son, and I'm going to defeat Blackbeard because he killed my daddy, you know, and stuff like that. And that was pretty much all we got with him. The other time that they appeared was when the warlords were abolished, and they sent those poor, hapless Marines with riot shields to go deal with Weevil. So yeah, they're probably all dead. They actually said in the last chapter, like, we sent out a bunch of warships to bring the warlords in, and well, it didn't turn out so well. So, which actually makes the only warlord that is now captured as of the end of chapter 1073 is Weevil, because they sent the first wave of riot shield Marines at Weevil, and that failed miserably. And then they sent another group of Marines to Sphinx. Weevil was there, you know, defeated their commander, Captain Rattle, and then, you know, they got sent off, or was it Ratton? Whatever. He got rattled, you know, whatever. Got sent off there, and then finally it was Green Bull, the admiral, that showed up and managed to bring Weevil in. I also don't really think it's that much of a, question on exactly how, Green Bull was able to bring Weevil in. Like, Weevil's a really strong dude. We've seen that. You know, whether or not he's the child of Whitebeard or he's a clone, he's probably a clone because, as we know, everybody in One Piece is a clone now. Even Frankie, he's a cyborg clone. Yeah, you ever thought of that? Bet you didn't. Okay, but, you know, Weevil's really, really powerful, but like I said, very simple-minded, kind of direct, sort of like swinging the Bicento around, like, get away from my mama, or get away from Whitebeard's island, you know, and just that's his basic one move. Now, to be fair, it's a very devastating move that'll handle pretty much most people. Even if you have really powerful armament hockey, Weevil will probably just bulldoze right through that. He's very tanky and everything, but in the face of Green Bull's Mori Mori no Mi, in the face of his, forest fruit, which is one of the strongest Logias in the entire story, we saw how devastating that was back at Wano. I could definitely see Weevil charging at Green Bull, swinging with all his might. Even if Green Bull turns into a giant tree monster like that, Weevil could easily cut that entire tree in half. But as we saw, Green Bull is able to just regrow himself from the ground. So it could have been something as simple as Green Bull turning into the giant tree monster. Weevil's like, get away from here! And then he slices the whole tree in half like a freaking giant redwood tree. Just, and then, Weevil's like, I did it, mama! And then Aramaki regrows and then just like traps Weevil with a bunch of vines and then just drags him down into the earth and then carries him off. Could have been something like that. Weevil most likely has armament hockey out the ass. Probably not so good on observation, is what I'm saying, okay? So, currently, actually, from the chapter, it is implied that he is being taken away to a prison. So, probably Impel Down. I don't know if they're actually going to be, if there's going to be something there en route, because Miss Buckingham asked Marco to come and help save her baby boy. Which, by the way, that's something else that I was rather surprised by in the chapter, that Miss Buckingham actually did seem concerned for Weevil, okay? Now, up until this point, the idea was like she was just manipulating Weevil as means to an end to get her hands on the money. And she's still very, very greedy. That did not take away that from her character. It wasn't like Miss Buckingham was like, I don't even care about the money anymore. My baby boy is missing. Marco, we need to go and bring him back. It wasn't anything like that. In fact, it was much to the contrary, where she was just like, oh, Marco, we need to bring back my baby boy. Also, by the way, if you have Whitebeard's inheritance, could you give that to me? That would be really great too. It would soothe this old mother's heart. If I could just have all of Whitebeard's treasure, if you just had that off standby. So she's still very, very greedy, but she still genuinely loves Weevil, her son, whether that be her biological son with Whitebeard, because I guess that's still feasible, or it's because through cloning technology, because she was a member of MADS, she got her hands on Whitebeard's DNA. Not gonna be specific on how the DNA was acquired or in what form the DNA is in. There's a lot of different ways DNA can be extrapolated, in your hair, in your saliva, in your blood, other bodily liquids, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know exactly what it was, but she got her hands on Whitebeard's DNA somehow and, cloned Weevil that way, but, still raised him. So even though maybe not her biological son, still very much like her son, and she cares about him, okay? So you see the genuine worry in Miss Buckingham Stussy's, eyes. She is crying quite a bit there. Marco's retort to that is like, hey, I appreciate you guys saving the island while I was away at Wano. I mean, really, that's a big thanks because, the island would have been devastated without you. But, like Marco is still unconvinced that Weevil has any relation to Whitebeard. Now, look, there's definitely some relation there. I mean, the hair and the Whitebeard mustache, the beard stash, as well as the freakish amount of strength. Yeah, there are differences as well, of course, but if you look at Weevil and look at Edward Newgate, there's not there is a Venn diagram here with some overlap, you know what I mean? So maybe Marco's not 100% sold on this. I think just because Marco had been on the crew ever since he was a teenager. He was an apprentice pirate on Whitebeard's crew, even well back during Odin's flashback, he was on the crew. So I feel like Whitebeard, if Whitebeard had a son, a biological son, then Marco would have at least heard about it at some points in the 30-something years he's been on the crew. Marco's, I think, in his late 40s right now. So he's a little bit kind of I'm not really sure about this, right? And I also don't think Marco is going to leave the island again. He saw what happened this first time when he left just to go to Wano for a few days. Marco can fly. He probably wasn't gone all that long. And then, boom, that's when the Marines attacked. And the Marines know about Sphinx. It's not like it's some kind of secret, hidden
some, it is a hidden village behind a waterfall, but the Marines know where it's at. It's not a mystery, okay? There has to be somebody there to guard it. So unless Marco can find somebody willing to guard the island for a couple of days or weeks, he's not leaving that island again to go rescue Weevil, or probably for any other reason, you know what I mean? So, Miss Buckingham, in her announcement, her little title card that she gets, I'm reading off the official viz here. It says, former Rocks Pirates self-stylized scientist, Mads Freeloader Miss Buckin, or Miss Buckingham Stussy, as in Buckingham Palace, which I hear is a nice palace in England. Yeah, so it says Mads Freeloader. So what I assume what happened with that is I'm getting an image painted here where after the Rocks crew was disbanded, Miss Buckingham Stussy, of course, she's kind of out of a job. She's down on her luck at that point. She needs to find someplace to lay low or someplace to protect her because, the Marines are going to be scouring the globe looking for the remnants of the Rocks crew. Now, a lot of the former members became Yonko, like Whitebeard and Big Mom and Kaido. So they're really strong on their own, even though in the case with Kaido, he still got captured. Although with Kaido, you kind of feel like he got captured because he wanted to, because he was just hungry, so he might have not have had to get captured if he didn't want to, but he still did get captured. So in the case with like Shiki and Captain John and Silver Axe and Wang Ji and everybody like that, they had to go somewhere in the world where the Marines could not find them, or at least not bother them, all right? I think Wang Ji set up shop at, the Hachinosu, some island out in there, so he's like, okay, I'm going to stay here in the old home base. Captain John was eventually killed by his own crew. There was a mutiny. Whitebeard, of course, Big Mom, they become Yonko. Kaido eventually becomes a Yonko. And then you have Miss Buckingham Stussy, who probably joined up with Mads. Maybe she has some kind of former connection to Vegapunk in some way. Maybe they were acquaintances while she was on Rox's crew. Maybe she knew about Vegapunk. Something happened where Miss Bucking went to Mads, their mobile laboratory for peace. And maybe because Dufeld was the one that was financing the operation. Maybe Miss Buckingham Stussy went to Dufeld to try to find a place to lay low, and Dufeld recommended Mads, and so she went to go work there. But because it was Mads Freeloader, I don't really think, she may have had some scientific prowess. We just don't know much about her past or even really her personality. Like Miss Buckingham has never stopped and, quoted some really, it's like, yes, the clones. Well, you see, if you carry the 4, she just knows a lot about clone technology or whatever. We don't know that. But I think that, yeah, maybe she has a little bit of talent, or she was literally just freeloading off of Mads. Like she was there and she just kind of crashed on their couch and ate all their food, and maybe it's like she's like, you're working on clone technology, all right, I'll just take that for myself then, you know what I mean? Like she just walks over and just copies off of Judge or copies off of Queen or Caesar or Vegapunk or whatever, and she did it herself, creating her own clones, in the case with creating Weevil. Actually, really quick, I just want to double check on the age of Edward Weevil now that we know that Miss Bucking was involved with Mads. Weevil's 35. Okay, yeah, he was definitely born, through Mads as a clone, because that lines up really well there. 38 years ago, Rock's crew disbands. Miss Bucking goes to stay with Mads, like right after this. So probably 38 years ago, Miss Bucking joined Mads. Couple of years to work with the clone tech and, Whitebeard's DNA and everything. Throw that all together, and then boom, you got Edward Weevil born, who I'm sure she raised. Now, I don't think Miss Bucking stayed with Mads for very long. In fact, 35 years ago, hold on, I'm trying to think of the timeline here. I'm trying to figure out the date when Mads broke up. We know that it broke up. We know that Vegapunk recently started working for the world government when the disaster at O'Hara occurred. Because based on the conversation between Vegapunk and Dragon in that chapter, implied that he had recently joined the world government. Because Dragon was really upset about that. So that was 22 years ago. Okay, yeah, I don't think it was right after Weevil was born, but it could have been when, let's say, Weevil was born as a clone of Whitebeard. Miss Buckingham Stussy raised him as her own child in Mads, and then let's say 10 years go by. So Weevil is 10. This is around 25 years ago. This was like a couple of years before O'Hara. That's when the government breaks down the Mads operation. Judge, Queen, Caesar, they kind of all go do their own separate things. Well, Caesar kind of goes with Vegapunk, but Judge and Queen kind of all do their own separate things. This is also when Miss Buckingham Stussy leaves Mads with Weevil, give or take a few years. Could have been, 25 years ago before the start of this, before the current story. Could have been 24, 23, 26, whatever, how many years ago, around there. And then, he joins the government, and then, because also Dragon says, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, Vegapunk, how could you join the government, kind of situation with that. Right. So, what do you guys think about that? Do you think Miss Buckingham Stussy joined Mads and was actually very intelligent and contributed, but it was more about her just freeloading off of Mads? And I guess you have to have a decent enough mind in order to comprehend cloning technology to begin with, because this is really advanced stuff. You know what I mean? If I just decided to crash with a scientist that knew shit about cloning, even if I'm just living there, I wouldn't be able to know a lot of information about cloning just by hey man, what are you writing? That's crazy. I'm just going to take this and make some clones. You have to have a little bit of a good mind on you in order to comprehend that. Then again, I don't know. She could have just pulled their hands and been hey, Vegapunk, because Miss Buckingham Stussy, considering how Stussy looks right now, as a member of Cypher Pole Zero, she's very attractive. And if Miss Buckingham is very well the person that Higurashi changed into during Wano, when Higurashi Kurozumi was displaying the powers of the Mane Mane no Mi to Orochi. Orochi was, of course, oh, I am Lord Orochi, except I'm not Lord Orochi yet. I want to be Lord Orochi. Who are you, old witch? Yes, I am Kurozumi Higurashi. Oh, hello there, Kurozumi Higurashi. I am Lord Orochi. Hello there, Lord Orochi. I am Lord Higurashi. Oh, God. Yeah, you thought the Orochi voice was going to end? Oh, no. That's what flashbacks are for. You know what I mean? Anywho, she transforms into a bunch of people from Rox's crew, one of which being Shiki, but another being this very beautiful blonde woman who was most likely Stussy, or Miss Buckingham Stussy, Miss Bucking back in her younger days. So what if she's just freeloading at, Mads, just crashing on their couch, eating their Cheetos, watching TV or whatever, not really caring about anything, as long as the government stays out of her hair, and then she gets the idea, since Judge and Vegapunk, they're working with clone technology and stuff, what if it, gets into her head, and they took, by the way, Ooh, okay, this might be it. I was going to say she was going to seduce Vegapunk, hey, Vegapunk, could you maybe, I don't know, make a clone of Whitebeard? It's all right, yeah, oh, sure, Stussy, okay. I was going to say that, but no, Stussy exists as a member of Cypher Pole Zero, the clone, the succubi Stussy right now, okay? This is going to get confusing. By the way, somebody brought up, actually, a few people mentioned, what if there's more than one Stussy clone? I'm oh, shit, that's probably an accurate statement. There's probably more than one. There could be more than one, you know what I mean? She was just Unit 001. She was Cyborg 001. There could be, I don't know, 8 other cyborgs. There could be 009 cyborgs. Random number, but that could be a thing, right? Who is your favorite cyborg? I liked, Cyborg 009 was really cool. I like Cyborg 008 because he was the underwater one. That was really cool. I like number 2, who was the super, jet engine one. That was cool. Yeah, I remember that show. That was a good show. That was on Toonami when I was a kid. There was a revival of it because there was that's one of those anime. There's a bunch of different versions of. Anyway, so but the point is they extracted DNA from Miss Bucking to create Stussy, the clone. So what if okay, I'll give you some of my DNA so you can make a clone of me, but Vegapunk, in exchange, I want you to take this DNA I acquired from Edward Newgate, don't ask me how I got it, and I want you to turn this into a clone. And what if Vegapunk's like, all right, I guess that's fair. If I'm taking your DNA to make you into a clone, then I guess I'll take Whitebeard's DNA and make him into a clone? All right, sure, but the cloning technology is not perfect. You know, the DNA, I mean, it might not turn out an exact copy, and that's how you get Weevil. All right, so there you go, right there, yeah.
So, yeah, raising Weevil as her child, which is why she cares about him and stuff, although very misguided in terms of, like, he just, like, listens to whatever his mom says, essentially. He doesn't really think very much on his own. But when he does, like, when we get the impression, like, when Weevil is left to his own devices, he is not a bad person. He is kind of a force for good. At least he's on Whitebeard's side. So he would think of Marco as an ally. It's Miss Bucking off to the side that, like, Marco stole, Whitebeard's money. We need to defeat him and get the money back. And Weevil would just be like, oh, I don't know, Mama. Like, defeating him, but Marco was Whitebeard's best friend, like he was his son. It might be something like that. So we see him here fighting for the people of Sphinx Island. Like, get away from this island. This is my dad's island, And so this is where he's buried, and this is where the Bicento is. Weevil could pick up that Bicento. Actually, well, I don't know, because we've already left. I was going to say maybe Marco could be like, well, listen, I can't go with you to rescue Weevil, but I can give him, Pops' Bicento for helping to save the island, but Weevil's no longer there, unless he already took it, which he might have. Who knows? I mean, the grave is right there. It's not far from the village. Ace's grave is there, too. Maybe take Ace's knife. Ace had that knife. Did Ace ever use that knife? I'm going off on another tangent. I'll make a whole dedicated video about Ace's knife later. But yeah, he could have had a fire knife. Did he ever use that? I feel like at some point he would have had to. I don't think he did, though. I don't think he used a fire knife. Damn it, Ace. You could have had a fire knife. If you would have just used the fire knife against a Kainu, that could have saved your life. Going back a bit here, if, Weevil is rescued somehow, so if Marco's not going to go, who else do you have? Jozu. Jozu could show up. We haven't seen him in a while. Vista. I think Vista's still alive. So even if Marco doesn't want to go, he might make a phone call to some of the former members of the Whitebeard crew. It might be like, hey, I have a situation. The island was attacked. This Edward Weevil guy, he saved the day. And then he was captured by an admiral. I really want to help out, but I cannot leave this island again. So it's either Vista or Jozu or somebody else shows up, maybe Fossa shows up to protect Sphinx while Marco goes with Miss Bucking, or Marco stays put and then Vista or somebody else goes with Miss Bucking to go and rescue Weevil. And that would actually be really cool, because then we would get some of the other members of Whitebeard's crew back into the... Damn it, I keep knocking this thing over. Getting back into the forefront of the story. Izo died, unfortunately. R.I.P. Izo. But we still have Jozu. Thatch is dead, who was the 4th Division commander. We have Vista. Those two alone, I feel like Jozu and Vista need to do something. They need to come back into the story in some way. Then, of course, we have Blamenko. We have Nyammer, who is the fishman. We have, hold on, King Du. King Du was the He-Man looking dude. We have Curiel, who was the Vietnam War vet with, like, the giant, like, gunnery and everything. All that. He was the gunner on the ship, all that kind of stuff. Fossa, of course. Speed Jiru. We have a lot of other members of the Whitebeard crew that are kind of scattered. Though, that if Marco calls them up and asks for a favor, they're going to say yes, for just all the camaraderie they had over the years. And Weevil is a good guy. He is helping them out. And honestly, Weevil wants to fight and defeat Blackbeard, so it might be a thing where it's like, hey guys, I don't want to get your hopes up, but if we can rescue Weevil and we fight together, we might be able to take Blackbeard down this time, you know what I mean? Now, Marco would probably be very reticent to make that call, considering Blackbeard kind of, killed Whitebeard at, I was going to say Blackbeard killed Blackbeard. No, Blackbeard killed Whitebeard at Marineford, and then they did the Payback War, which did not end well. So Marco would probably be very reticent to just like, hey guys, we're going to try this a third time now. But you got Weevil now, and Weevil is definitely an ally to fight against Blackbeard, okay? The more people that we get together to fight against Blackbeard, the better, you know what I mean? We got Shanks, we got Luffy, we got Garp now, if we could just all attack Blackbeard at the same time, like, okay, guys, taking Luffy out of the equation for right now, because Luffy's not really dealing with Blackbeard stuff, but, like, if we get Shanks, Weevil, and Garp all going up against Blackbeard, who do you think wins in that scenario? I guess you would have to include the 10 Titanic captains in there, too. So
10 Titanic captains, excluding Aokiji, because I feel like Aokiji would not participate. He would be like the sleeper agent on Blackbeard's crew. He would kind of have to be. Because I refuse to believe Aokiji's evil. You know what I mean? That's just not the case. So excluding Aokiji, maybe even actually having Aokiji fight on their side, so it's the 9 Titanic captains and Blackbeard versus Aokiji, Weevil, Garp, and Hibari and Helmeppo and everybody else, and then red-haired Shanks and his officers. So Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, Howling Gab, Yasop, everybody there, against Blackbeard's crew. Now that would be a fight for the history books. That would be a slobber knocker right there. That would be a fun one. So yeah, that's basically it. What do you guys think about Miss Bucking? Do you think she's going to get a crew together to join up and go and fight against Aramaki to get Weevil back? What do you think about Weevil himself and his nature? Do you think Miss Bucking might have like a change of heart for at least like the moment? Also, if somebody could just give Miss Bucking a lot of money, because that's clearly what she's after, if you could just give her a bunch of money, it's like, okay, fine, great. Now we could go fight Blackbeard or whatever. I have my money. I'm happy, right? Fun fact about Miss Bucking, by the way, she is the shortest adult in all of One Piece. She's only like 2 feet tall. She's very, very tiny. Okay, so that's just a little fun fact. Anyway, that was the video on Weevil and Miss Bucking, and now we are going to do a very special installment of RHINO Facts. Cue that intro. Let's go.
All right, and on this special installment of RHINO Facts, I actually have some good news. Every single RHINO fact just kind of ended very, depressed because of all the, the strife that rhinos have to face in the wild. Many of them are going extinct. Some of them are actually extinct in the wild. So today I'm going to be spotlighting a rhino charity. This is IRF, or the International Rhino Foundation. I looked at a few rhino-based charities, and this one ranked very highly on Charity Navigator. It's like a website that ranks a charity based off of their transparency and the funds and everything, where the money goes and everything like that. The International Rhino Foundation got 4 stars, which is their highest rating on Charity Navigator for accountability and finance, and that's a 94% total. So I'll leave a link to their website below, but let's just take a little bit of a look at this here. Protecting rhinos in the wild. Protection and monitoring are a key to rhinos surviving in the wild. More than 1 rhino is killed by poachers each day in Africa. That is insane. IRF supports monitoring and protection activities in southern Africa and funds Indonesia's rhino protection units. In India, wildlife crime training has been implemented to help forestry officials better coordinate investigations. You can donate to them directly. I already donated. You can adopt a black rhino, so symbolically you can adopt a black rhino and just be okay, and you'll get a little certificate and everything, and all of this stuff will go to rhino tracking, emergency treatment, and rescue of rhinos in the wild that have been maybe attacked or tranked or had their horns removed, so rescuing them to make sure they don't die, make sure in care and rehab, and even moving them to safer environments if the region they were in is just now, they can't stay there because of poaching and whatever. Also, they work directly to try to mitigate the demand for rhino horns in countries such as Vietnam, like we discussed earlier, where in Vietnam there's a huge demand for rhino horn for various kinds of traditional medicine, and also status symbols, which is just horrible. Just so some rich dude could have a rhino horn above his fireplace. Is just wow, yeah, check it out, rhino horn, pretty badass, right? It's no, you're a freaking monster. So anyway, yeah, go check out International Rhino Foundation. They do a lot of really good help for rhinos, and you can go and look at all their statements there, the countries where they operate at, the different sanctuaries they run. All of that stuff is on their website, as well as to donate or adopt a rhino. But yeah, it's a pretty cool charity. So this one has actually left me with a little bit of hope this time at the end of RHINO Facts. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking signing out. Save the rhinos.